Hey guys, I'm back again. It's me. All right, welcome back to the Uxbridge Senior Center. I don't know, we've done the floors, we've done the ceilings, we've done the walls. I don't think there's anything else we could do. You know, I mean, we got new tables. Huh?
How about a new kitchen?
New building.
That's on the list. That is on the list.
You decorate the kitchen?
I don't decorate the kitchen. I only decorate out here. Let's see. We got some crafts coming up this week. We have a moth ghost that lights up. We have, I think that's it. That's all I'm doing. Yeah. We were closed. It really messed me up for all of our stuff here.
Me too.
Yeah, me too. We missed you guys. We missed you guys. Gail, is there anything else you can think of?
So we have bingo this week?
Oh yeah, Big Bingo is on Wednesday.
Yeah, next week is bingo. We got Scrabble every
Oh yes,
Thursday
our
now.
new Scrabble turned out wonderful yesterday. We had four and a half people playing Scrabble yesterday. But that was fun. What's our speaker's name?
Yesterday was about
Debra?
like 4 or 5 people.
Guys, we're gonna have a speaker today. Hoarding. Oh, you gotta go. Don't go in that back room. Thank God Lisa's not here. She'd be giving me pamphlets or something. And we got our chief. Yay! All right, so let's do a moment of silence.
What?
And we're done.
Oh yeah, I thought you were looking at me and saying. I know.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much for joining us again for another Lunch and Learn. My name is Chief Montmany. I come here once a month to see you all and give you some useful information. Before we start with our program today, I have a big announcement from the police department. The police department last week received our full accreditation from the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission. So it's a voluntary program that we spent the last 2 years trying to accomplish. So it was 2 years of work and we finally got full accreditation. Most departments in the state are not fully accredited, but you can do it. It's a voluntary effort. We went through the effort. 2 years later, we finally got our accreditation. So thank you all for your support. Everybody is aware of the violence that's taking place in the Middle East right now. There was a report that violence would happen across the country today on Friday the 13th. So far, keep your fingers crossed. We haven't had any problems here. We don't have a synagogue in town, but we are very, very cautious of our houses of worship, regardless of what they may be. So we're praying for no violence today and hopefully some resolution to the conflict in the Middle East. We're going to be talking to you today about hoarding. We thought this would be an appropriate topic of conversation for Gail and Sally because if you haven't seen their office, we think they may suffer from hoarding issues in there. But anyway, we've brought public health nurse Debra Vescera with us today. She's from the Blackstone Valley Partnership for Public Health, and she's got all kinds of information on hoarding. And after she's done with her speech, we're going to ask her to go into Gail's office and take a look.
Hi everyone, my name is Debbie and I am the Regional Public Health Nurse for the Blackstone Valley Partnership for Public Health, and it covers 8 towns. Hold it closer, is that better? I'm not used to using a microphone, so. And she's going to help me with the slides. And those are the towns I cover: Blackstone, Douglas, Hopedale, Mendon, Millville, Northbridge, Upton, Uxbridge. It's a collaboration for public health services, shared services with the town so that they can provide education and health services, healthcare services. So first of all, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the overview of hoarding disorder, just so everybody gets an idea of what it is. I think I have it. No, it's a public health problem. It impacts the health and safety of the person that lives in the home, or people that live in the home. It also impacts the quality of life of neighbors. So if their stuff is coming outside or there's trash outside, it can impact the health and safety of neighbors as well. It's hazardous to emergency medical services, fire, police, and animal control. When they have to go into these situations, it can be very dangerous, and they can be exposed to, they can become injured, or they can actually be exposed to a contagious disease as well, or diseases from bugs and mice and all kinds of things. So the definition of hoarding disorder, it's the persistent difficulty discarding or parting with possessions regardless of their value. So it accumulates over time. It's a combination of biological, neurological, and psychological components, but the exact etiology is still unknown. They're still doing research on this. It was only in 2013 that it became its own condition, and as a mental health condition. It is under the obsessive compulsive disorder, but now it is its own condition. Next slide. So here is a little bit about the prevalence and the demographics of, right there. Thank you, Chief. It's found in 2 to 6% of the United States population. And that means 1 in 25 people in your community probably have this disorder. Believe it or not, that's quite high when you think about it. The mean age of 16.7 years old when they start doing this. They start collecting. But it can develop very early on in adolescence, and it has been seen in children as young as 11 or 12. The education varies widely. It can be somebody who has, is got mental health issues, or it can be somebody who's a doctor, a lawyer. It could be, it doesn't matter. It affects all people of all races and religions, and it does worsen with aging. It is a chronic condition, and the homes often become inhabitable. So I've been in homes that have been inhabitable to the point where it's unsafe, and the risk of even collapse, of the building collapsing because there's so much stuff, can fall on top of people or can even kill the person who lives in the home when it's severe. So it's found in all genders, men and women. I had in a different town that I covered out toward Western Mass as a public health nurse. I had a retired police officer and a retired teacher who had this issue, and the teacher had saved all of her papers from when she originally started teaching. They were stacked in stacks in the home, and the police officer saved papers and everything, memorabilia, and it was just beyond, in a lot of tools too. And it was actually a dangerous situation, but they're actually doing quite well now. So that's good that they got some help. Generally, they're single, and there's a low marriage rate because they don't want people in their home. They have shame around it. This is the person that you're always going. They're coming to your house, but you never go to theirs. They never invite you over, and you've known them for 20 years, and you have yet to be in their house. Just think that might be one of those people. And they tend to live alone, or they live with somebody else who has this disorder. The average age of treatment is around 50, and that is if they recognize that they have a problem. It increases 20% every 5 years. It is a chronic and progressive disease. And I think what happens is trauma generally will trigger it, or the loss of a loved one will trigger it, and the condition worsens. Next slide. So what's hoarding and what's squalor, right? So hoarding, it can be a combination of both squalor and hoarding. Squalor is seen when they're not using, the bathroom facilities aren't working, the water's not working, there are other things that are going on, and they're having to do their business in the litter box or elsewhere in the house. I've seen it all over the years that I've been a nurse doing this. It is a psychological disorder, hoarding. It's the definition: persistent accrual of impractical items and an inability to remove them without suffering severe anxiety. So it is an anxiety disorder. And when you work with folks who have this disorder, you have to be very, very aware that even if it's a brown bag that might be something that you see as, why do you have all these brown bags? You don't need all these brown bags. For some reason, there's an emotional attachment to that. And it goes back many years, and then it just kind of accumulates over time. And and then for squalor, that's filthy and degraded conditions, like I was saying, where it's so bad, and there's, a lot of times no running water, or if there is running water, it's not what it should be if they have it. A lot of times even the kitchens are so covered with items and packed up with items that they can't even do their dishes. They can't get to the kitchen sink. Have any of you watched that show? What is it? Buried Alive, Hoarders, Buried Alive. Have you seen that? Yeah, those are the severe conditions. And when it's a personal squalor, because again, over time, these folks they're not going anywhere either. They're living kind of sheltered because they in their environment. So, yeah, they can't. So it can also end up with what's called Diogenes syndrome, and that is when the personal hygiene of the person is also affected. They don't even realize that they haven't had a shower or a bath in months and months, if not longer. Next slide. So here's a little bit about hoarding and insight. So these are the three kinds of people that we see. We have varying levels of insight. We have people who are non-insightful. There's bugs, there's cockroaches, there's animal feces, a lot of things that are in the home, and in the food, and flies, and maggots, and they don't even realize that this is an issue. They fully think this is okay. They just don't recognize it at all because they've been living like this for so long. It's normal to them now, become normal. Then there's the person who's insightful, but they're not motivated. So they say, yeah, I know I have a problem. I probably should get some help, but I just don't have the time, and I just don't have the energy to do that. I'm just, and they continue to acquire items. They're the folks that pick up all the free stuff on the side of the road because they know that there's something that they might be able to do with that thing. And then there's the insightful and motivated, but they have an inability to comply. And that's the person who wants to really get this under control, but they're so overwhelmed they don't know where to start. And those are the people we hope that we get to work with, and even the non-insightful, to get them to have some insight. Next slide. And as you can see, there's a picture of a home that it looks like. So the items, they're very sentimental to people. Even those boxes, we're like, how can you be attached to a box? You just don't ask. You just have to try to understand that for some reason they think that this box is useful. and that someone can use it. It's intrinsic. It hasn't. It's valuable. It's useful. And the acquisition of buying in acquiring free things, like I just said on the side of the road, when it said this is free. Random piles of items, and they do this thing called churning in severe situations. Churning is when there's piles and piles like that, and they need to get to their medication, which they probably aren't taking anyway, and they need to get over there to get it, and they just take a shovel and shovel their way over. That's what's called churning. And then there's cocooning, which again is anxiety related, where you go in, and if those of you who watched that show Hoarders, if you watched it, they have just one spot, and it's almost like a cocoon. That's why they call it cocooning, right? Where they're sleeping. And it's around them are all the piles, and then they're just in there. That's the only place that they can go to sleep. So it looks like a cocoon. So obviously they're trying to protect themselves somehow. Next slide. So when we're interacting with someone who has this disorder, it can be very difficult, especially to family members who are trying to help, and they want to just take things and move them or throw them out. This is no good, and they throw them out behind the person's back. You have to actually be very in tune that there's specific emotions and attachments to the beliefs that are associated with these objects. Even if we don't see that, for some reason, that person does. And they also have personal beliefs and self-worth and beliefs about humankind. So a lot of times when they're taking in things like bags, lots and lots and lots of plastic bags or paper bags or newspapers, they think, I'm holding on to this because somebody might need it. You almost become a storage unit, you know. I'm keeping this because someone might need this someday. And they also, sometimes people have undiagnosed cognitive disorders like autism. They may have learning disabilities, and they all have a decreased problem-solving ability. And the personal barriers for them to get treated include they don't have enough time. That's a big one. I just don't have enough time. And the second is like past trauma history. So for instance, one of the cases that I've been working on lost a son. And that even made the situation that much more worse. It started, and this was an animal hoarding situation, and they just kept getting more animals, to the point where the animals can't be taken care of anymore, and the home is not livable. There is a family history involved in hoarding, so that kind of scares me because I had a grandmother who was from Italy, and let me tell you what, her house burnt down because of hoarding. And when she got her new house, she still had the burnt house on the other property. Imagine. So she had the burnt house there. She wouldn't even let us take the burnt doors from the home. And after she passed away, we found over 500 pairs of shoes. Yep, some of them they were all in boxes, and she had them stashed away in places that we had no idea. And I wish that I had her shoe size because my sister got all the shoes, or most of them. She had a lot of nice shoes. They were all, and I never saw her wear any of these shoes either. You know, so that's the thing. They hold on to things, and for some reason, shoes were very sentimental to her. And it's because when she was a child, that she had one pair of shoes. You know. So this kind of just progressed over time. She really liked shoes and pocketbooks because the shoes had to match the pocketbooks. They also have comorbid medical and psychological conditions, decreased motivation, and lack of insight, as we said before. Next slide. Don't be too much longer. So here's what can happen. This is what I had actually a nurse that I work with at the hospital say, you're a nurse. What do you have to do with hoarding? Isn't that like a housing thing? No, that's a housing issue. And no, it's a health. The health impact is pretty incredible. They have difficulty performing activities of daily living, often have poor nutrition, increase in urinary tract infections, non-compliance with medications, because they, especially in the animal hoarding situations, a lot of times they're buying food and things for their pets and they're not getting their medications. And they may not be getting routine medical care. One of the cases I've been working with has not seen a doctor in 10 years. And is quite ill. And they have a higher risk of asthma, COPD, sleep apnea, especially if there's a lot of pets in the house, because the dander from the pets can actually contribute to the sleep apnea. So sometimes you'll see that they're on devices to sleep at night that help them sleep at night. Fibromyalgia, strokes, obesity, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune diseases, chronic fatigue syndrome, and hematologic conditions. They're at greater risk for falls, injuries, fires, electrocution, hazardous chemical exposures. And here is where they're an increased risk of biological conditions related to, and this also involves your public safety folks when they go in, diseases related to insects, like tick-borne diseases, rodents, mold, animal feces, structural dangers, animal to human diseases, and other environmental hazards. So it becomes a very dangerous situation for these folks. It's a difficult illness to deal with. Next slide. And here we go. This is with the risk to first responders, animal control, public health officials, police officers, fire, and they're at increased risk of injuries, potential entrapment. That's a big one. Exposure to animal and human waste, increased exposure of infectious diseases. Some homes are so bad that really shouldn't be in them without a complete hazmat suit, like the whole, the non-rebreather. It can be dangerous to the person's health going in. Animal bites, rabies, insects and mold. Structural issues, limited exit, and a bigger fire load. So in one of the towns I worked in previous to coming out here, the animal control officer had retired, and from the outside of her house, you couldn't tell there was any problem. Outside, looked very nice. Inside was a different story. But no one knew. No one knew. We all knew her for many years, but no one knew that she had this condition. She kept it hidden, and she never asked any of us, police, fire, all of us worked together, if we wanted to come over. We always thought that was kind of odd, but we just thought she didn't like company. Anyway, there was a fire in her home, and she died. She died in the fire because the firefighters could not get to her to save her life. And it was devastating to all of us in the public safety, public health. It was devastating because we had no idea that this was going on in her home, and I think all of us had wished that we had known and could have done something to help, and we couldn't do that. So that's a sad but true story. Next slide. So, like I said, it's a distinct mental health disorder. Other mental health issues, the 92% of the individuals have one or more other underlying psychological conditions like depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorders. Social phobias, those are the ones that don't leave the house. They have very low insight, and usually the problem is seen by someone else. You go in your friend's house and go, oh my God, what is all this stuff? And, you don't know how to help. So, in clutter, it's only a symptom of the problem. The problem, like I said, it's anxiety related, and they have emotional attachment. And most of the time, the reason it becomes progressively worse, because as people age, you also have mobility issues. You might have other conditions going on. So it's harder for you to clean your home, pick up the things around you, right? Harder to pick it up, clean things, right? When you get older. Simplifying is difficult. I know I have my kids, I have been a nurse for a very long time, and they bought, and my husband was a firefighter in Worcester. They bought us all these, every year we got a little fireman, a little nurse for, whatever. I must have, and I have all of these for many years. And I'm thinking to myself lately, my kids aren't going to want those back if something happens. They're going to say, I call them my tchotchkes. They're going to probably be, it's time to ask them if it's okay if I can discard some. And one of the suggestions that helps people sometimes is to take a photograph of the object and make a scrapbook before you part with it, so that you have that memory to look back at what your kids, grandkids. My grandmother, the one I'm telling you about, she saved everything, she had 14 grandchildren. So she had all her kids' stuff from grammar school all the way up, and all the grandkids' stuff, and anything they made them, she still had it. Because those are emotional things they're hard to part with. Next slide. Now this one, just very briefly, animal hoarding. It's known as Noah's syndrome. Isn't that interesting? Noah's syndrome. What do you think? Why do you think it's related to they call it Noah's syndrome? Anybody have an idea? Right. Yep. They're trying to fill the ark. They're filling the ark. They're saving the animals. This is what they think. And it is equivalent to Diogenes, but with animals it's poorly understood. This is the hardest to deal with. Animal hoarding is the hardest to deal with because they truly in their hearts love these animals. And they can't take care of them. So that's it for my piece of it. And I just want to let you know that one of the things we're working on in Uxbridge right now is a hoarding task force. And it is currently being put together. One of the goals was to get me out into the communities to do some education and teaching about this disorder. And it's a partnership. It's cross-jurisdictional, so we're all working together. Your health department, police, fire, nursing services, who else? There's a bunch. Your senior center folks. There's a large group, and it's really exciting because this town has been so engaged in this process, and it's a long process. It's not an easy thing to get going, but we're starting to finally see some benefits of the program by getting out and doing these educational pieces. And I have some information up front for you up there if anyone's interested. I brought a couple books just to show that are about hoarding and help with hoarding, and also some information. There's also groups called Clutterers Anonymous. It's a 12-step program for people who have cluttering issues. And, I don't know, I might have it. No, this has definitely made me aware, to be aware of it and to, be aware. And, yeah, anyone want to come clean my basement? No. Thank you all very much, and feel free to come up and get any information or ask any questions.
Thank you very much, Deborah. She'll stick around for a few minutes if you have questions to ask. If you want to approach her, she'll help you get some advice, and she has some paperwork at the front here. I wanted to mention something that happened this morning. One of the guests here just mentioned it to me. This morning at Taft School, we had a guy go onto the property wearing Michael Myers mask. The Halloween mask and stuff like that. He said that he did it because it was Friday the 13th, but apparently the school wasn't very happy with him, and they called the police, and he ended up getting arrested. He was on the property with a mask on, and so that happened this morning. Of course, you never know when police respond with those things. We don't know what the intent of the individual was. We don't believe he had any harmful intent, but it was certainly foolish. So. Yeah, that's right. You don't do that this day and age. That's right. So we thank you for attending another Lunch and Learn. I will see you all next month, and we'll do it again. Okay? Thank you.